Thanks, Alex, for the warm introduction. Point there. Okay, yes, so I'm going to share a bit about the Tufts University Center for Cell Ag, which I shall henceforth refer to as TUCA, not TUCA, and what I see as our unique perspective and maybe role as an academic institution in taking cultured meat from idea to impact. Emphasis on impact because I think when we talk about cultured meat, we often do so with an underlying assumption that as long as we figure out the science and technology, it will go off and do what we want it to do in the world. But history shows us that science can do good things, science can do bad things, science can do everything in between. So it's really incumbent on academic institutions to be thinking proactively about what policies might need to be implemented to ensure the responsible commercialization of the research being done in the lab. And it's that thinking that is sort of TUCA's secret sauce. Okay, so TUCA is an academic center based in Boston, Massachusetts. If anyone is ever in Boston, you're welcome to come and visit. And we do a lot of things, but the three big ones are that one, we work to democratize the scientific building blocks of cultivated meat, meaning our research spans the gamut from cells to scaffolds to media to bioreactors, building a talented workforce, and fostering public trust. So leveraging our position as a pre-competitive, non-commercial center to do rigorous science communication and build trust with the public. So to give you a sense of the scope of TUCA, I first want to correct a misconception, which is that TUCA is synonymous with the Kaplan Lab. So for the uninitiated, Dr. David Kaplan is our fearless leader, executive director of TUCA, and PI of a very, very large cultured meat lab at Tufts. But it's because of the success of his cultured meat work that we formed TUCA. So TUCA is the Kaplan Lab plus 9 other faculty members, so 9 other labs, across 5 schools, from the School of Engineering to the vet school to the med school, and 11 departments. So in total, TUCA has 84 plus people actively working on cultured meat research. We haven't yet rallied the entire crew to take a group photo, but here are some snippets of many of our grad students and myself at a recent cultivated meat tasting tour we did in San Francisco, where we visited many of the companies here in the audience today. And then 25 publications and 28 patents filed. So what does TUCA actually do? The pillars of TUCA are as follows. So we have our flagship academic program, which graduated the first Cell Ag PhD in the world, meaning this is Natalie Rubio, who I think many of you might also know, the first person to go into grad school from day one all the way to her thesis, working exclusively on Cell Ag. We now currently have 15 PhD students, all 100% dedicated to cultivated meat research. We have a certificate in Cell Ag, and brand new as of 3 days ago, is a undergraduate minor. So we're beginning to see undergraduate students matriculate to Tufts University specifically because they can graduate with a degree in cellular agriculture. We're also home to the USDA National Institute for Cell Ag. So a few years ago, the U.S. Department of Agriculture made a historic investment in this field. It's the first, and to my knowledge, still the only time the USDA funded Cell Ag, and that was to create a center of excellence, which is housed at Tufts, but in partnership with 7 collaborating universities, including UC Davis. Kara from UC Davis is here today, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, UMass Boston, MIT, and it's a government-funded, like I said, center of excellence. So this is, right now, so far we've talked about the academic research, but we're working to take research from idea to commercialization. So we also have an industry consortium, which was founded with 6 members, Upside, Thermo Fisher, Cargill, GFI, Vow, and Merck. We're about a year in, and we'll be recruiting more industry members. So if you're interested, please reach out after. But the thesis behind the industry consortium is that a rising tide lifts all boats, and we need to be having more communication between what's happening in industry labs and in academic labs, because these work synergistically and often might be duplicating efforts, or people in academia might be a little bit behind what people are doing in industry labs. So the goal of the consortium is to create lines of communication to resolve these maybe research obstacles. Members pay a fee, and they vote on pre-competitive projects and determine research priorities within the scope of the consortium. So with 6 members, we have 6 projects. If we add more members, we'll add more projects. And in exchange for that fee, members get enhanced access to students and royalty-free, non-exclusive IP rights. And also, unofficially, they get to all sit in a room together and have kind of candid, off-the-record communications and conversations about what each of them are doing. And then brand new is a commercialization lab started by Natalie, Andrew, and John, who were the first 3 PhD graduates of our program. And the idea behind the commercialization lab is to help find homes for a lot of the research and technology that might be happening in the academic lab. So it's a mini venture studio which lives at Tufts. So this all came about really because we played the long game. So sort of a deep cut, maybe fun fact that a lot of people don't know about Tucka is that before it was even Tucka, Ryan Pandya, who's the founder of Perfect Day, the precision fermentation milk company, was an undergraduate research assistant in the Kaplan lab. This was many, many, many years ago, and he sort of laid the groundwork for this program today. So we count many founders of companies as our alumni before Tucka was really established as a program. And the way we were really able to get university buy-in is because Dr. Kaplan has decades and decades of experience in the field of tissue engineering. So when he decided to take a chance on this agricultural application of really a medical technology, aka cultivated meat, he had a track record of success. And it was this track record that enabled him to get buy-in from the university, buy-in from New Harvest and GFI, who were our first funders, and then eventually buy-in from the USDA and ARPA-E. So you can see how long it really took to get the research up and running. And so an incomplete list or diagram of ways you can work with us is here as follows. So we do sponsored research agreements, we have visiting researchers from all over the world, we create CellAg courses and publish those materials online. Obviously we have the industry consortium, we do tech co-development, and then we work closely with regulators and the public to leverage our position again as this pre-competitive, non-commercial research center. But this is incomplete because we really see ourselves as changing and adapting to the needs of the ecosystem. So we create a lot of bespoke agreements with potential collaborators based on their interests. And the research thrust of Tucka is determined by what students we take on. So it changes and evolves year over year. And again, we'd love to collaborate. David never says no to anyone. So if you email, he will respond within minutes and probably say yes to whatever you propose. So if you're interested in collaborating, please, please do reach out. But then back to what I was talking about in the very beginning, how do we take CellAg from idea to impact? So how do we ensure that the science that we're doing in the lab goes out and does good in the world? And what makes me so proud and happy to work at Tucka is that we're thinking proactively about these questions from day one, from now, because we're still in the infancy of the industry. I think many may say it's too early to be thinking about those questions, but it's never too early to be thinking about the responsible commercialization of this tech. So when I said that we had 84 plus people involved, the vast majority of them are scientists, but we have a growing contingent of ag policy experts, ethicists, anthropologists, et cetera. And a lot of these people are associated with the Friedman School of Nutrition Science and Policy. So when we think about Tucka, it's really the marriage of the School of Engineering and the Friedman School, which has a track record of ag policy, placing people in government, and thinking about the food system comprehensively. So it's not just enough to do good science, which is why we've formed this partnership with the Friedman School from the very beginning. And so I'll end with a reason why I think this is so important, which is insulin, the diabetes medication. So in many ways, we can think about insulin as the OG cell ag product, right? So insulin used to come from the pancreases of hundreds of thousands of pigs. That was harmful to the pigs, but it was also expensive, a complicated supply chain, and so people thought, how can we remove the animal from the equation? Which sounds a lot like cell ag, right? That's what we're doing here today. So thus, recombinant insulin, using E. coli to make insulin without the pig. That technology, cell ag, before cell ag was even coined, made insulin cheaper to produce. But we all know the story of what happened to insulin in the United States, right? It became criminally expensive. We hear tons of horror stories about people that can't have access to the medication because of the way that the technology was commercialized by pharma companies and the way the IP game played out. And so I mention this because I think this is a cautionary tale as the OG cell ag product for us as a field, and TUCA especially, via our partnership with the Friedman School, to be thinking about the responsible commercialization of this technology. So what's the lesson learned from insulin? I'm not sure, but that's why we're working with the Friedman School and ensuring that our scientists in the lab are talking to policymakers from the very beginning of their PhDs so that we can create this robust checks and balances system, which hopefully creates a world in which cell ag goes out and doesn't become inaccessible. And so that's an overview of TUCA, and I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we open it up to questions, I want to say that I think so many exciting new things will be coming out of what TUCA is doing and some of the other universities that you had mentioned as part of not only that government program, but a lot of what other things that we'll be seeing once we officialize groups like this. And Kara, as Meera mentioned, will be, I believe, at the open mic later today. So you'll be able to hear from Kara from UC Davis as well. With that, are there any questions for Meera? I have a question.
Okay, hit me with it.
So, do you think that there will be spin-outs of companies that are coming out of TUCA?
Yes, there are spin-outs in the work via the commercialization lab. They're still kind of in stealth mode. They're really only a few months old, but you'll definitely be seeing spin-outs in the near future.
Okay, and that's with Andrew and Natalie and John?
Yes.
Okay, and so the commercialization lab is primarily there for, I guess, commercialization, right? But you'll see spin-outs in the form of startups and things like that, or more maybe like IP and licensing?
Both. It's about creating companies and then also finding homes, so partnerships with existing companies in the field to use the IP developed in the lab.
Very cool. Thank you. We have a question here. Go ahead.
As Alex likes to say in his podcast, can you explain to me, like I'm a 5-year-old, more about what the commercialization lab looks like and the research lab? Like what's in there? What are they what's it look like? Paint me a picture.
Yeah, I can do my best to paint you a picture, but I'll say you should, and I know that you're already in touch with Natalie, so you should reach out to Natalie. The commercialization lab is very, very new. You won't even find it on our website. It was only started a few months ago, and as I think everyone knows, working with university tech transfer offices can be really complicated, so they're still figuring out a lot of the bureaucratic processes to streamline the commercialization. I will say that they have a separate physical space than the Kaplan Lab. They're in downtown Boston. We're in Medford. They're beginning to hire staff. They're registering a spin-out company. So they're kind of their own thing under the umbrella of TUCA and working closely with the Kaplan Lab, but they're very much their own entity. Is that helpful?
I'm saying, pretend I'm walking in the door. What do I see?
Yeah, I mean, right now you just see Natalie and John on their laptops, and they have bench space. Yeah.
Were you imagining a big marketplace full of cultured meat? Yeah. I like that Omega Mart reference there. So, we have one question here.
Yeah, so does the lab solely focus on the biological aspects, or are there also like hardware development, like bioreactors, process development included in Tucka?
Not so much the latter, although we have a pretty informal pipeline of interns with ARC, which is a Boston-based bioreactor company. So I think we might be expanding into sort of the bioreactor development space, just because people are getting experience working at ARC. Again, all of the research is just driven by student interests.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Let's give it a round of applause for Meera.